Hello and welcome to the Motoring News Zone, the show we take you for all the biggest stories in the world of cars right now. This week, drivers in the state of Washington will have their phone data monitored by police. Tesla's FSD mode causes a collision with a speeding train, and the price of gas is set to rise in California. Find out why and a whole lot more in today's roundup video. If you're on YouTube, skip to the timestamp in the video description below to go to the story that you're most interested in watching. So without further delay, let's dive in. Got a rather concerning story to bring you guys here, particularly if you live in the state of Washington. The Washington police, their state patrol, have planned to utilize cell phone data to identify parts of the road that are high risk for speeding. So for those that don't know, if you're using navigation apps on your phone, it will usually say how fast the speed limit is on that road, and also it will track how fast you're actually going as well. So police over in that part of the country are wanting to use that data to find basically where people are more likely to speed, then set up patrols, set up speed cameras, those sort of things. It seems like a huge invasion of privacy, I must be honest. Whatever happened to privacy? Whatever happened to protecting your information? This seems like a very concerning story, to say the least. I'll go into the full story, guys, just so you get all the details, and I'll give some of my thoughts at the end. But my initial reaction to this was very much, what on earth is going on? This very much does seem like we're heading towards a surveillance state. I don't like this at all, and this is an extremely slippery slope in my opinion. But anyway, enough of my opinion. Let's hear why they are doing this, what their justification is for, what a lot of people will think is massive overreach by the authorities. So once these spots are identified, the agency will then employ additional troopers to monitor those stretches during times of higher traffic. So basically, they are wanting to be more efficient in how they are trying to catch you out for speeding, which of course, you shouldn't speed. 100% not. You shouldn't go doing that. But should the police have access to this information? I don't think they should, I'll be honest. The data that the Washington State Patrol purchased from a company called Michelin Mobile does not yet track real-time movements of users, according to the agency, as it only includes records of when and where drivers are most often braking, accelerating their vehicles, and also using their phones. Again, you shouldn't use your cell phone while you're driving, but still, again, this just seems a bit overreachy, to be honest. The agency stressed, though, that they do not have any access to any other personal information. Yet. It's a slippery slope, like I said. Sergeant Greg Riddle said that the information related to driving behaviour is, quote, really the only data that we take from this information source. All the other stuff is redacted. We don't have people's personal information. Yet. So hopefully people aren't thinking it's a Big Brother thing. It's certainly not that. Oh, look away here. No problems whatsoever. This is not an invasion of your privacy. Why are you worried? You're just paranoid. What are you talking about? A somewhat conflicting message, though, comes from the acting director of the Washington Safety Traffic Commission, Shelley Baldwin, however. She attested that the Washington State Patrol is collecting all cell phone data to, quote, build this huge database of information that comes directly, real time. They're live streaming this stuff. It's active monitoring. What the hell? The data collected thus far derives from over 1 million cell phone users in the state of Washington, and it's not clear whether such users are limited to residents of Washington state or include all drivers who travel through the monitored area. So, to be honest, given the information and given how these things usually work, it's probably all users in the Washington state. It's probably all users in the state of Washington, so if you're going there for vacation, if you're just going there to visit family, you're going to be tracked probably. Previously, law enforcement have had to get warrants to obtain this information from cell phone users. Only people who are actively involved in an investigation or a suspect usually have to go through this kind of process, but now everybody in that state, or at least all of the residents of the state of Washington, will be subjected to it. And then the question becomes as well, what about people who live in the state of Washington but go to other states? What if they travel to other states? Are they still going to be tracked? I mean, let's be honest, guys, we're all being tracked here anyway. It doesn't really matter just how open they are and honest about it. If you have a cell phone, you're being tracked, 100%. They listen to you. And that's not even a conspiracy, that's a fact. And obviously, as I have kind of more than alluded to here, this does raise massive questions about civil liberties, about your freedom to privacy. It does seem as though you don't really have much of that right anymore, at least in the state of Washington. And there could well be some legal challenges over this. And there could well be some legal cases off the back of this, some lawsuits, some challenges in the legal system. It wouldn't surprise me at all. But yeah, unbelievable stuff, guys. Big Brother is watching you. The police department over in the state of Washington are watching you. They will claim that you've got nothing to fear if you're not doing anything wrong, but what about your right to privacy? Is that just not a thing anymore? I guess it isn't. And if we see this rolled out in Washington and it's a, quote, success, could more states in the union follow suit? Could more countries follow suit as well? Your thoughts on this are very much appreciated in the comments below, guys. I got chills talking about this. This is scary stuff, I must admit, and it could set a very dangerous precedent, and it's without doubt a slippery slope. Like, share, comment, subscribe, guys, if you want to see more news like this. Like I said, I don't mince my words. I don't shy away from the stories that a lot of agencies will, of course, not want to talk about. I'm here, I'm talking about it because you guys deserve to know. Tesla's full self-driving mode, also known as FSD for short, is a very controversial feature on their vehicles. Some people love it. They think it's a fantastic idea, and having a car that can effectively drive itself will be far more efficient and far safer in the future than what we currently do when we get in a car and press the loud pedal. But a lot of people are critical of it, and also Tesla's rollout of it as well, in particular with, of course, the robo-taxis that are currently being tested in Texas right now. But I've got a really shocking incident to bring you guys here. A Tesla has been hit by a train after an extreme self-driving mode error, and it went around 40 to 50 feet down the tracks after it was hit by this speeding train. An absolutely horrific incident. But what's happened here? I got the full story for you guys, as always, on the channel. A trio of passengers narrowly avoided disaster after a Tesla in FSD mode made a left turn down a set of railroad tracks in Sinking Spring, Pennsylvania. The three in the car were able to safely exit the vehicle before the electric vehicle was struck by a train just minutes later. And after that, according to the fire department, it travelled 40 to 50 feet down the track. If the passengers were still in the vehicle at that time, I think they most likely would have not walked away from that one. So how did this happen? Well, the potentially disastrous self-driving mishap came as Tesla begins to roll out its first robo-taxis in Austin, Texas, increasing scrutiny over the technology's street-worthiness. And this all comes despite Elon Musk's long-time promotion of the company's self-driving technology as a safer method to drive than human drivers. However, the things that we have seen since then with our own eyes very much goes against that narrative that Tesla and Musk are trying to push. And in fact, the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, the NHTSA, examined nearly 500 crashes involving Tesla's vehicles operating in self-driving mode, and 13 of those resulted in fatalities. Safe? No, absolutely not going off of this. And you might say, well, those are just numbers. What actually happened? Well, in more than 45% of those 500 crashes, the Tesla struck another vehicle or obstacle with adequate time for an attentive driver to respond or mitigate the crash, i.e. they were avoidable and would have likely been avoidable had a human been in control of the vehicle. And in a further 31% of the incidents, the Tesla vehicle slid off the road in low traction conditions such as a wet road, again avoidable if a human was in control. And the report concluded that the primary issue behind the crashes was a mismatch between drivers' confidence in Tesla's self-driving capabilities and the technology's actual performance. Now, autonomous driving is big business. Consulting firm McKinsey & Company predicted that the annual revenue for autonomous vehicle driving technology will reach between 300 and 400 billion US dollars by 2035, giving deep-pocketed tech companies a huge incentive to pour billions of dollars into it. There's Tesla, but there's also, of course, Waymo, which is owned by Alphabet, the parent company of Google. We've got Amazon, who have Zoox, and of course Uber are wanting to do the same thing as well. There's a lot of big tech and big companies investing big into autonomous driving, but it's not safe yet. especially the Teslas going off of this evidence again. And the fact that Tesla keeps saying that their self-driving mode is safe and we keep seeing these kinds of incidents is absolutely downright terrible. Anybody who has worked in any kind of engineering, any kind of science industry, making a statement that something is safe and not dangerous without testing it is just plain insanity. And like I said, this could have easily been a multiple fatal crash, but thankfully it wasn't. The drivers got out. But remember the Cybertruck that burnt up as well. That's a horrific story in itself. I brought you guys that a while ago as well. Someone unable to exit their Cybertruck that was burning up because all the doors are electrically operated and the emergency release handle is not easily found, particularly in a very stressful incident like a fiery crash. So yeah, incredible stuff, guys. Your thoughts in the comments below. I want to hear what you have to say about this. Bad news for people residing in the state of California. The key gas surcharge is set to double at the start of next month. From July 1st, that price is going to double, and therefore you'll be paying more at the pump, at the gas station to refuel your car. Why is this, and what has the reaction been? Well, you can guess what the reaction has been. Not very positive, to say the least. California waging a war on gas-powered cars. They still want to ban them eventually, despite what the central government is, of course, telling them. They're just doing their own thing. They're doing what they want. And what they want is not what the people want. Let's have a look at this, guys. I got the full story here as always. So according to the California Air Resources Board, also known as CARB, again a very controversial agency right there, the updated low carbon fuel standard is expected to add 5 to 8 cents per gallon to the cost of gasoline when the rule comes into effect at the start of next month, July 1st, 2025. That is on top of the existing 8 to 10 cents per gallon that CARB estimates consumers are already paying in pass-through gasoline costs for the FS, the low carbon fuel standard. And in a state, of course, where people are really struggling to make it by, really struggling with the cost of living, this is not going to go down well. And trust me, it hasn't. We'll get into that at the end of the video. But it could get worse in the future, believe it or not. According to representatives from the University of Pennsylvania, if the LCFS credit prices reach their maximum allowable level, gas could rise by up to 65 cents per gallon, as we already brought you a little while ago. So this very much is the tip of the iceberg. Unsurprisingly, the Republicans are not happy about this over in the Golden State. Senate Minority Leader Brian Jones from San Diego, who of course is a representative for the Republican Party, said the following on this. Even CARB is now quietly admitting what we've been warning about all along. Their updated LCFS regulation will at least double the cost of burden on Californian drivers. Whether it's 13 cents or 65 cents, LCFS is a hidden gas hike being forced on working families without transparency or accountability. It is another tax upon more taxes. It is a tax in all but name. And who likes taxes? Now, while the LCFS does not apply to other states outside of California, such as Nevada and Arizona, those states, or at least significant portions of those states, are fed by Californian resources. So it will also have a knock-on effect into those states as well. Even though that is a decision that has been made by a different state, is going to directly affect drivers in those two states and arguably beyond as well. CARB has estimated that the updated LCFS standard, which will require 30% reduction in carbon intensity by 2030. Now, this is in terms of the fuel that's actually being used, by the way, guys, just so to avoid any doubt on this one. So not all types of gasoline are equal. Some have more carbon that they emit than others. Basically, it's pushing the price of gas up because they are going for these types of gasoline that are less carbon intensive, and it's costing more to do it. It's harder to make, essentially. And they're also calling for a 90% reduction in this by 2045. And because of that, that will increase fuel costs by $162 billion through to 2046. And what's that going to fund? Over $100 billion in credits for electric vehicle charging network owners and $8 billion in credits for hydrogen producers as well. So they're using it to try and make it more affordable for electric vehicle users. Again, not a popular one. Under the current LCFS program, credit prices have already been approximately $60 per ton of carbon dioxide. And with that tightening of the regulations on the 1st of July, The credits could well go to their maximum allowable price of $268.90 per tonne. And even if they rise to $100 per tonne in terms of their increase, that will have a huge knock-on effect in the price of gasoline at the pump. That will immediately make it rise by around 26 cents. It will make it rise by another 34 cents by 2030 and almost 60 cents per gallon by 2035, 10 years away. People very much not happy with this. It's another tax, it's another charge on hard-working, tax-paying Californians who are really struggling to make it by right now. And this is only ever going to affect the working class, the people in the lower classes. The rich, they can afford this no problem whatsoever. But the hard-working average Californian who is trying to scrape by, barely able to afford to refuel his car, they are the ones that are going to be struggling. They can't afford to get an electric vehicle. They can't afford to get something new. They're on the edge as it is, and this could well push people over it. But that is my take on it, guys. Not very good, to say the least, but have your thoughts in the comments below. Air it out, guys. Let the Democrats see what they are doing. Maybe they will listen. Probably not. But you can still... I will listen to it. I'll read your comments. I'll see what's going on in there. It's fair to say Tesla are in a bit of hot water at the moment when it comes to controversies. Of course, the robo-taxi rollout is currently going on in Austin, Texas, but there is some controversy over their full self-driving mode. And indeed, we brought you a story literally the other day going over how, unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on how you look at it, there was a car in full self-driving mode, a Tesla, and it basically drove onto the railroad tracks. The car was hit by a moving train and thrown about 30-40 feet further down the line. Thankfully, the passengers all evacuated the vehicle before it collided with the train, but that could have quite easily been a deadly incident. And a lot of people are questioning whether this full self-driving mode is safe, whether it is actually right to be rolled out to the public like this. After all, in Austin, Texas, for example, you got the robo-taxis going around now. Are people safe driving around? It's a very big question at the moment, really, when it comes to this. So understandably, they are wanting to test these vehicles. They're wanting to test the FSD mode. But unfortunately, officials have refused Tesla's request to test their full self-driving mode, the test that they were going to do with it, because it's currently not possible. What was this test? Why is it not possible? I've got everything you need to know right here on the channel, guys. So this story relates specifically to Sweden in Europe, as officials in Stockholm, the capital city over there, have rejected the company's request to test the system out on the city streets. And it's a big blow to Tesla because they are wanting to roll out their FSD mode in not only the US, but also their other markets as well, including the European Union. So what happened? Why did it get refused? Well, Tesla recently asked for permission to test its FSD system on public Stockholm roads, but the city's traffic department turned the company down, unsurprisingly citing safety risks to its citizens and infrastructure and, quote, heavy pressure from other ongoing innovation tests, going as far to say as it's not possible to implement the test currently. So why is this such a big deal? This is just one city in one country. This is not a big deal. Tesla have got much bigger fish to fry. Well, unfortunately for them, it kind of sets a precedent, and it's also a bit of bad press, to put it mildly. And essentially, if they're wanting to roll it out to different kinds of cities, they're going to need to test it in as many different locations, as many different countries as possible. In Austin, Texas, for example, it's a very well laid out, relatively modern city with a lot of wide roads and a lot of grid patterns when it comes to the layout of the city. However, anybody who's been to Europe will know that our roads here are a lot different. They're a lot narrower. They're a lot bendier. The cities have been here for hundreds, if not thousands of years. So navigating these can be really, really difficult in cars because they were built for the horse and cart, or in some cases, just people walking around on foot. So testing somewhere like Stockholm, which is a really old European city, will be quite applicable to a lot of older cities around the world, not least those in Europe as well, one of the biggest markets for Tesla vehicles. And this, of course, all comes as Tesla sales on the European continent are absolutely plummeting right now. Not just in Europe, of course, we've seen a similar thing happen in China, the UK, even in the US as well. Sales are very much down. And it's just a bit of bad press, really, when it comes to this. And it'd be a massive blow as well if another company like, I don't know, for example, Waymo, maybe wanting to develop something like this as well. If they get approved for this, they'll get a massive advantage. Although we'll bring any updates with that as it comes, guys. So yeah, big blow to testing for Tesla in Sweden. Are you surprised at this? I'm not overly, to be honest with you. And like I said, I think it's going to set a precedent, because if Tesla try and do it somewhere else, they'll probably just follow Stockholm's example, because if something does go wrong, then everybody's going to be criticizing that government and that city's authorities as well. Well, Stockholm, they rejected it on safety grounds. Why didn't you? You should have heeded their warning signs. The sensible Swedes once again, or have they gone a bit too far here? I want to hear what you have to say in the comments below, guys. Giants of the oil and gas industry, Shell, have denied reports of the biggest deal in a generation taking place. There have been rumours, according to the Wall Street Journal, that BP is potentially going to be acquired by Shell. BP being, of course, British Petroleum, one of the biggest oil and gas giants in the world as well. But Shell have denied that this is the case. This is not their intentions. But let's have a look at the story, guys. Let's have a look at what's happened here. So the Wall Street Journal were the ones to break this story, saying that people familiar with the matter reported on Wednesday that Shell was in the early stages of talking to snap up its rival in the largest oil deal in a generation. BP are valued at around $80 billion US, and that would make it the biggest deal since Exxon and Mobil merged in 1999 for a $83 billion US deal. According to the Wall Street Journal, this acquisition, if it does go through, would allow Shell to spread costs over a larger operating base and would box out rivals. Since both firms are technically registered as UK companies, the deal might also be more likely to win approval from the country's regulators than a merger involving companies registered between two different nations. But Shell have come out and said that it is pure market speculation and nothing more. But when it comes to these kinds of deals, it is often the case that there is no smoke without fire. Shell said that talks are not currently taking place when they spoke to Reuters, and that, quote, as we have said many times before, we are sharply focused on capturing the value in Shell through continuing to focus on performance, discipline, and simplification. If this goes through, though, like I said, this would be the biggest deal in a generation, the biggest deal this century when it comes to the oil and gas industry. And many people are thinking that this could potentially be a very bad thing for the marketplace when it comes to oil and gas, not least for petrol prices here in the UK, as of course a large portion of garages in the UK are owned by Shell and BP. Of course, there is plenty of other competition out there. There's plenty of other suppliers of petrol here in the UK, but yeah, it's a large part of the market that would then be cornered, and it would call into question things such as monopoly laws as well. But when it comes to these kinds of big money deals, they usually find a way around it, a way to prevent it. But guys, get your thoughts in the comments below. Is this deal going to happen, and will it be a good thing for the marketplace? I want to hear what you have to say as always, guys. A think tank here in the UK has said that EV owners who charge at peak times should be, quote, punished. Interesting and strong stance that, but let's have a look at the reasoning why they've said this and whether this is the right route to go down when it comes to recharging electric vehicles, which of course is a controversial issue in general, because the amount of electricity that is requiring from the grid, the pressure that it's putting on it, does in fact contribute to power outages. We see it in California all the time as they're really trying to push things when it comes to electric vehicles. But should those that charge their vehicles at peak times be punished? Let's have a look at what this think tank is thinking here. So the long and short of it when it comes to this think tank's thinking, this theory behind this stance that they've taken, is that owners of EVs should be discouraged from recharging their vehicles at peak times like mornings and evenings, and instead be encouraged to do it more during the night time instead, when electricity usage in general is a lot less. Of course, most people are asleep, so the overall stress on the grid is a lot less, especially compared to peak times or any kind of daytime really. In fact, when it comes to the supplier of electricity, supplying the electricity during peak hours, such as those between 4:30 and 8 p.m. in the evening, is around twice as expensive for the company. But despite that, obviously, it doesn't really matter for the consumer. It's the same no matter what time of day you actually choose to use something. Now, there are some tariffs that will allow you to do different amounts for different times. I think there's one that lets you have free electricity on certain times on a Sunday and stuff like that. But in general, for most of us, it doesn't really matter when we use that electricity. It all costs the same. But the think tank Resolution Foundation has warned that mass adoptions of electric vehicles could make this system untenable in the future, as a surge in people topping up their cars when they get home from work could lead to a huge spike in delivery costs that would make bills far higher for everybody in general. And in fact, it's gone as far to say that the government should axe the energy price cap for electric vehicle owners who use too much electricity and instead introduce variable prices. This would mean, of course, like they said, that it would charge more during the evenings but charge less during the nighttime. So the overall cost could go down for them, as long as they use it at the correct time. But I'll go into why that might be a bit problematic at the end of this video. But according to their estimates, if they manage to charge during the night rather than the evening, owners can save around £120 every year in the average UK household. But the electricity market in general is thinking about many changes, including having zonal pricing, as it has been dubbed. This would essentially see Britain's energy market be broken up into different regions, with electricity prices in each area based on local supply and demand. So, for example, the price of electricity will probably be higher in London because, everything's more expensive in London, whereas here in Yorkshire, it would be significantly less. Don't know what it would work out as in reality, but that's just an example. And in fact, this already does exist in some Western countries, such as Australia, Italy, and Sweden. So having Britain do the same thing might not be so outlandish. However, most estimate that businesses and residents in the south of England will be charged significantly less, whereas us in the north and people in Scotland and the Midlands would be charged less. But again, it would vary depending on what kind of city that you are near. And again, the think tank, when it comes to these findings, has said that if they went for the zonal system, which Ed Miliband, who is the energy secretary these days, is considering doing, it would save the average household £200 per year, although some people and some businesses would obviously pay more depending on where they are. So there we go, guys. Should EV chargers be charged more for charging at peak times? I understand the thinking behind this. I do get it. It's charging the electricity companies more. But if I'm being totally honest, we have bigger problems when it comes to the UK and energy bills. We are getting absolutely rinsed for these. The cost of electricity and gas has skyrocketed over the past few years. So anything that could help with that is good. But how would it actually work out when it comes to these privatized companies? Is it actually going to be something that's good, or is it just going to be another way to increase the prices overall? Honestly, if there's a way for them to charge more, they will. They know what they're doing and they're very clever about doing it. But how long are they going to be able to get away with it for? We'll have to see. But while ever these companies are not taxed properly when it comes to their profits, what chance have we got, the average person? That's just a UK problem. I know it's different for different countries. I imagine countries like Sweden have a nationalised energy system, so it's easier for them to do it. But here in the UK, even though they are starting to take back some, I believe they are starting to nationalise some electricity and gas companies. Obviously, the vast majority of them are still privatised. So getting them all to agree to that, I don't know if that's going to be feasible. They might have to be forced, to be honest, but we'll see what happens, guys. Your thoughts in the comments below on this are appreciated as always. Like, share, comment, subscribe as always if you want to see more. Have a fantastic day wherever in the world today, and we'll see you very soon.